One of the things that comes along with an opening up to freedom, to the realization of our true nature, in my experience and what I've witnessed with other beings, other people, is a desire for to see the world in a non-hierarchical way, in terms of a type of value system of seeing people through the lens of equality. And and while that may seem easy, um, to drop the hierarchies of value judgments of how we see the world, how we see each other, how we place a value on what's worth more than another thing, and including the animal world and the plant world. All of that starts to kind of level out, and it's really becomes obvious that we are really one being. And although we may look differently, and there may be very obvious differences, um, that one life, one aspect of life is not of more value than another. And it's understandable that we have our personal friends, and we have our family members, people who are close to us, that we are putting our immediate attention on. And I have a family of my own, and so I understand that. But something starts to happen, and it's at first it seems kind of subtle or not, and then it just becomes more and more complete. And one of the ways that this also shows up is in the realm of seeing how we treat each other, and also how we treat each other in terms of um, how money is being distributed. One of the primary things that I see as being incredibly destructive to our planet and to one another is greed. And the idea that one person or one tribe or one group or one country, whatever it is, should deserves to have more than another. And I see this actually playing itself out even within my own community, in a very well-to-do, seemingly well-to-do, comparably to other communities and places around the world. But within that community, there are people who are suffering, with not having enough. And people who are on the streets, and even people who may not look like it, and who have a home but who are struggling. And then I know other people, and I know people like that, and I have to include myself in that. I'm here in this beautiful home right now, that I'm house sitting for people who have this beautiful home, and I appreciate being able to be here. And so I have been in both worlds. I've been growing up. We had plenty. We had enough. And then as an adult, and when I became a single mother, it was a struggle. It was a struggle for a long time, and it really woke me up to this aspect of inequality, and for that I'm actually grateful. Sometimes it takes a type of struggle, for instance, being discriminated against, or going through a health crisis, or having someone whom you love die, or not, or actually having financial difficulties, to be able to have empathy and compassion, and to see how so many other people are actually having a similar experience. So in that way, I'm actually grateful. And it kind of has planted me in two different worlds. One of being comfortable with abundance, and one with really seeing the difficulty, and how how challenging it can be on so many levels to be in survival. And so I'm speaking about this because actually within my own community and people that I know very well, I and it's not to point any fingers whatsoever, but it's just to possibly bring more awakeness and awareness into something that seems to be kind of an area that people do not speak about, and that is when someone has more than enough, and how even within the realm of spirituality and awakening, that there is still this primary survival instinct and of wanting to hold on that plays itself out. And so I see it that there's this freedom that opens up for many people in our culture, and and um, and as more awakening enters, there's still this little area where it hasn't fully penetrated, and that's what I'd like to speak to right now. Is just the 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 difficulty of loosening the grip around survival, to where when one has actually enough to know that, to know the difference, to know when you have enough, and maybe even more than enough, and then the separation that can create with others around you who may not have enough. And it's being played out all the time. For instance, I've been to many beautiful dinners and events where people will talk about everything else but money, and talk about everything else under the table, relationship, spirituality, health, whatever. But there will be somebody sitting at the table who may not be able to pay their rent, and somebody next to them who has 3 houses, for instance. Something like that, right? And the topic will never come up. It is so taboo. And for a while, I've been wanting to speak about it, and I don't have any immediate answers, and I'm not trying to make anything wrong. It's just that if we really are interested in waking up completely, I think that this kind of subjects need to be spoken about and brought out into the light of consciousness and aired out, even if nothing is resolved in the moment, but just like, hey, I see that you are suffering here. Or the other person said, hey, I see that you have more than enough. What's that like to be with somebody who doesn't have enough, side by side, rubbing shoulders in the community? And that includes, of course, driving by homeless people. How does that make you feel? Not that you're supposed to do anything in the moment in particular, but I think that when we're willing to explore these subjects and explore the tightness that might lie there and that might be gripping us around it, and that included for me too, to have to explore the subject and how it is that I feel in regards to it, to tell myself the truth. And I personally don't long for more than enough. And I just see it being played out on the micro level within my own community, and that's what I'm referring to primarily. But then it extends on the macro level. If the people closest to us in our own community are having a hard time talking about this and letting go and opening up, out of fear of if resources were shared, or how would that look, is all those kinds of elements, I don't know where I'm going with this. Basically, just how opening up that Pandora's box, letting it out, And I think with awakening and the spiritual topics, we speak about everything, a lot of things, quite a bit. And then you have your activists. But I think that the more and more people are bringing the two together, right? The spiritual activism, and I think that inevitably it does, because the freedom ultimately does not see a difference, and sees it doesn't place a value as to who is of more value to have than another, because in the end, unity consciousness sees everything with equality. Everyone is that. Everyone is God, including the animals. And I don't. That's a whole nother topic. And but how can to penetrate with that awareness to the micro degree and be willing to speak about things that are difficult. So this is just an opening conversation, and see what it leaves you with. And I know it's not easy, but I think that these kinds of topics need to be spoken about, with each other as a start. Wishing you well.